Hi everyone, this is Troy from Fate and Crisis. Just doing a little behind the scenes right now concerning the making of our second album, Collision Course. It's been quarantined for a really long time, so excuse my horrible hair. I got a really, really bad haircut and it's still growing out, so that and quarantine has led to my horrible facial hair. Anyway, just a starting point. Anyway, so I thought we'll just go through each of the songs. And we'll talk about a little bit about how they were made and just some interesting things, just so that anybody can look back on this and know what was going on. So to start it off, we'll talk about the intro track. This is an interesting one because I've always really liked intros on albums. And I thought it would be interesting for us to do one since we didn't do it on our first one. This was actually originally a track called In the Absence of Fear, which was going to be the original title. By the time I got to the end of the recording, I felt that there were too many songs that were slow, and it was kind of dragging down it. I wanted the album to be a bit faster and a bit heavier, so I ended up cutting it. And then when I was thinking about doing an intro, I thought that it would be interesting if I could, kind of make that work. So I cut it up. It used to be like a 4-minute track. It ended up being now, I can't remember what it is now. It's only slightly over a minute, I think. But I basically just cut up some of the parts, the intro, a little bit of the verse, a little bit of the outro. And then I just made that solo for it, which was really quick. It didn't take very long. I just kind of improvised over it, but I really liked the way it turned out, actually. And that's how it kind of came about. And the other reason we ended up changing the album title was because I felt that after the songs were done, and since I was going to cut that track, the theme of the album had changed enough that I felt that the title we ended up going with, Collision Course, just felt a lot more apt for what we were doing. And it's just a little bit about the intro. It's not really like a real big song or anything, but there's just some background about it. So track 2 on the album, the first actual song, is called Collision Course, one of my favorites. So a little bit about this song. There was a time before I decided to do the vocals for our band that I was playing with a drummer, and we were just doing instrumental tracks. And we had 2 songs that were just called Gothic and Alchemy. And they were just titles that we gave because I think I had a poster that was called Gothic Alchemy, so I just split up the titles because we needed to refer to them as something. But they really didn't have any meaning or anything like that. It was just instrumentals, really short ones. So no lyrics, no singing. And but I liked some of the riffs in it, or at least the bases of them. So this track started with a working title of Gothic Alchemy because I was going to use some riffs from both of those songs. But eventually, when I was writing it, we ended up dropping all the riffs from the song Alchemy, so it was just the song Gothic that was a basis for it. And I ended up reworking everything into a new song, which had another working title called Lacerate through Betrayal. And that one is actually fully recorded. I even put a preview up when we were recording it. But it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out by the end of it. I still really liked a lot of the stuff that was in it, but it didn't do what I wanted it to do. But the one part that did work was the middle section, which was a really nice intense riff, and the solo, and that part is still in it. I think from like 2.5 minutes to like 3.5 minutes, or till the solo ends. That part was all in it, but outside of that, I reworked the chorus, the verses, the intro, the ending. Everything else is totally reworked. So it's pretty much from scratch outside of like a couple of the riffs, and even the riffs from Gothic were changed pretty much a lot, but that was the basis for it, at least when I started. This song was also recorded in Saskatchewan. I remember listening to it when we went to a resort with my fiance's family, the demo that I had made. This was also, I think, the first song that I recorded vocals for this album. Is it either this or The Light That Hangs From Your Eyes? But I'm pretty sure it was this one. I recorded in a really sketchy rehearsal factory location where I honestly thought I was going to get carjacked. So it was a harrowing experience. I never went back there. It's one of my favorites on the album. I really love the energy. I love the solo, especially going back and forth with harmonies. Some of the guitarists I love really do that, and I thought it was a really fun thing to do, and really loved it. I love the intensity. I love the urgency. It's a little bit more towards extreme metal than we usually do. Not that it's super extreme, but more extreme than what we usually do. And I think it turned out really great. Really, really love how it turned out. And the lyrics are generally just in regards to climate change and, the way that the world has been pushing this so hard that now we're kind of on a collision course with the reckoning that's due. So that's kind of what the song's about, and just a little bit about it. So yeah, that's Collision Course. So moving on, the next song on the album is track 3, The Light That Hangs From Your Eyes. This is one of the older tracks on the album, and actually one that I barely changed during recording. We used to play it in my old group Avarice, in which it was me, my best friend, and my brother. And for that one, I still wrote all the songs to the music, so it was essentially my group. But in that one, it started with some bass chords, a chord progression that my brother came up with. And then I built the song totally around that. Most of that is actually gone now. Only in the verses do I keep those 2 bass chords, and then the little bass solo before the guitar solo. That's kind of what that was. So you can still hear it in there. But we recorded this song at Hive Studios, I remember, in Hamilton, but I was never happy with it because one of the reasons we stopped doing that, and that I record all our stuff now, is because it always took too long. It went too fast, and always felt really rushed in the studio, and that there just wasn't enough time to get the takes right, to really think about what you were doing. So while the other recording was good, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. So I was really happy to actually, do a version here that I felt represented what the songs should be. It's one of the most layered tracks on the album. There's a lot going on, a lot of rhythms, a lot of leads, clean rhythms, distorted rhythms. And so it was kind of a pain in the ass to mix to get it sounding the way I wanted to, but eventually I was happy with it. And something that I think is really interesting in this one is that the song was basically in the form it is now from like 5 years ago at least, maybe more. The only thing I really added on this one that was new were the clean guitars that are heard in the verses and in the chorus as well. Because in the other versions, I always felt there was something missing. It was kind of just the big chunky rhythms playing, and it felt like there wasn't enough movement. It was just the vocal line carrying it. And once I put in those clean guitars, I really felt that it helped it, gave it a lot more movement. Just felt like it was carrying the song a lot better, and it made it layer nicely too. So it worked out pretty well. It's one of my absolute favorites on it. I kind of view it as like a sequel to City of Lies. They are not really the same at all, subject-wise, or even the songs. Just in my head, I kind of think of them as like sequel songs. I don't know. I do that. Anyway, the song is just kind of a straight love song. Just for my fiance, who I find her eyes sparkle. I call them her twinkling eyes, and that's what the song's about. It's there's not too much that needs to go into detail there. So that's The Light That Hangs From Your Eyes, and hope you enjoy it. Oh, actually, I should say, it is one of my favorite solos that I've ever written. Really, really happy about that one. I remember I showed it to one of my friends, and he told me that it was the first time he's ever felt like a guitar solo made him feel emotion. So that was pretty cool to hear. So guy I respect a lot musically, so that was pretty cool to hear, and one of my absolute favorites. So yeah, that's The Light That Hangs From Your Eyes. All right, so moving on. The next song is track 4, called Dark Intent. And this was originally a song called Dark Eyes. I know, really changed the title there. You'd never figure that out. But this was a song I used to play again with my old group Avarice. But the song was really different back then. It was kind of all over the place. I really liked it. It was one of my favorite ones to play live, but whenever we recorded it, always thought it sounded terrible. And so this version, really, it's just the main riff. That ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's really the only part that is still remains from the Dark Eyes version of it. And even that, it was played a lot lower on the A string. But when I was recording this, it wouldn't punch through at all. It just was getting swallowed up by the rhythms. So I ended up switching it to being played on a higher string, and that worked out better. So yeah, we were never happy with it, and just reworked most of it. I really love how it turned out. I like doing the leads all over it. It was a little bit Alexi Laiho inspired. So the song changes tempo a bunch of times, which was a challenge to make it flow smoothly. I found that it was definitely harder to do. And there's lots of layering, so it was a little bit difficult to mix. In terms of cool things about it, there used to be in the original Dark Eyes version, there used to be a big stretch part where it was like a 7 or 8 finger stretch. It was always one of my favorite parts to play when we would play it live, but it didn't fit with the song anymore once we changed the arrangement and added all these new parts. So I kept it out, and I think eventually I will use it in another song because it's a badass part. The other part that was missing that used to be in it was there was this cool little harmonic part where I used to do just a bunch of pinches in a row, like half pinches. And I had a friend who used to hear that version of the song, and when I showed him this version, he wasn't pleased that I took it out. It was always his favorite part. So I will use it again eventually at some point. I really like how it turned out, and I really like the wah part, because it's a little bit of string skipping tapping, which I have never done on a song. So I really like that. I think it sounds cool, and I always like to try new techniques that I've never done before. And the lyrics in general are just about, kind of abstract, but it's about general decay in society, and how if you keep crossing a line, eventually, sometimes you can end up in a place where you didn't want to be, just maybe someone that you didn't want to be. That's kind of just what it's about. A little bit more, abstract than having an actual straight line idea or anything like that. So yeah, that's Dark Eyes. Not really too many cool stories behind this. Definitely one of my favorites to play live, though. Or it will be. We haven't played it yet because of quarantine. Anyway, that's Dark Intent. And I actually know I talked more about the old version than the new one, but yeah, the new one doesn't have as many cool stories associated with it. So sorry about that. Anyway, that's Dark Intent. So moving on, track 5, the middle track on our new album, Collision Course, which you can get everywhere now. On iTunes, Spotify, wherever you want it, is A Red Dawn. This song is, again, an older song, but it wasn't quite in the form that it is now. It used to be really long. It was about 6 minutes, and there was a big fast section at the end, which I used to love playing live. It was one of my favorites. But when it came time to record it, I couldn't get it to sound the way I wanted it to, so I just cut it. Maybe I'll come back to it at some point. And then for the most part, the song is the way it is. There are only a couple of changes made. For example, the solo used to only be the first half of the solo, but I added a second half because I felt it was lacking some punch and just needed to spice it up a little bit. Also, the whole intro section with that riff right up to the first chorus, I think where it says "Who We Are," that didn't exist before. It was that was added entirely in this new version. I really love the way it turned out. There's a lot of layering, clean and distorted, both rhythms and leads. And I like using the phaser on it. I love phaser. It's always been one of my favorite things to play with. I used to go into music shops and just play with the phaser pedals because I didn't have one. So that was really fun to actually be able to use it in a song. And it was a little bit Breaking Benjamin inspired, kind of the song. Oh my God, I can't remember what it is right now. Diary of Jane, I think. Yeah, they kind of had like a sound going on like that, so I thought it sounded a little bit like it, a little bit inspired by it. I really, really love the bridge that happens right after the chorus. It's kind of like a little neoclassical line, maybe. I don't know if it's quite classified that, but that's what I referred to it as. Really love that part. I remember working on that with my one drummer, and he was helping me like arrange it. I thought that was really fun. Really love to do that. It's another one of those ones that we don't have that much, where it's a little bit more atmospheric, similar to The Tides Are Pulling Me Under, and the next song, World of Nothing. A little bit more atmospheric instead of high frenetic energy, which is a good change of pace. And the lyrics are actually, surprisingly, they're about subliminal messages and advertising, propaganda. Just that if you're not cognizant about, being aware that these things are trying to influence you in the world, and people are trying to, get in there and kind of erode you away, that can happen, and you can kind of lose your sense of self and kind of be distorted by, a lot of the noise that's in the world now. So it's just about being true to who you are in that way, and trying to, be aware of those kind of things and those kind of threats. And that's a Red Dawn, and that's what it's about, and really love it. So on to the next one. Hey everybody, so continuing on, we'll do the 6th track, which is World of Nothing. This is, again, one of the older tracks on the album. This is a song I've had for a really long time. I used to play this in my old band, Avarice, and always really loved it. This one has never had a recorded version. I can't remember if I said this for a Red Dawn, but with a Red Dawn, I did actually record a version, an instrumental version, a really bad one with Audacity. I shouldn't say that. I actually like the way it sounds, even though it's not, this one's better. But with World of Nothing, I never ever recorded anything with it at all. Always really wanted a version because I really, really love playing this one. It's one of my favorites to play. It's, again, pretty atmospheric, much more in the vein of a Red Dawn than our usual stuff. And Tides Are Pulling Me Under as well. But we never recorded a version. And I also thought it would be good because it's one of the few tracks that it's easy for me to sing. I always find it really tough to get the tracks down initially. Easier once I've done it a bunch of times, but this one I've always been able to do it pretty easily. I think it turned out really well. Added a bunch of leads to go over all the parts that I play when we play live. And there were some parts added to this one too. It's not exactly as it was. It's a bit longer. I believe I added a verse, an extra verse, as well as the first guitar solo, which is kind of just like a bridge riff thing. That was added as well, which was not in the original version. And I think I stretched the intro out a little bit too, just to make it a little bit more atmospheric. The song is kind of about an apocalyptic event, just stemming from societal greed and a little bit of decay. And it talks about that, about how, things have kind of got off the rails, and we've let things get a little bit out of control in certain areas. But it all kind of, this is kind of silly actually. I bet some people will not like this, but for me, I always really like to think about imagery, and certain, images can inspire me. And for this one, it was actually Neon Genesis Evangelion, or Evangelion as they would say it in the anime. And the image of, I think it's like, I can't tell who it is, but it's like Rei's face, like on the cover, and Shinji and Asuka are sitting there after they've rejected the human instrumentality project, and they're just like by themselves on this like dead world. That was always kind of the image that I was, kind of writing the song to in my head. Other people may not do that. I do that sometimes. So really love that anime. I think it's great, and I was happy that it helped me inspire me a little bit. I have a couple other songs too that like go a little bit in this vein, where it's a little bit more atmospheric and a little bit along those lines, and maybe someday I will include them on an album. But for now, that's all I really have to say about this one. This one doesn't have a ton else to say about it. But yeah, always really love to play this one live, and yeah, it's a nice breakup to the album. So that's World of Nothing. Hope you enjoy it. So moving on, for Phaeton's Crisis' second album, Collision Course, we're going to talk about the track The Calamity from the Sky. And this is one of my favorite tracks off the new album. Really tried to get out of my comfort zone with it. and go a bit heavier than I ever have before, and really push the boundaries of what I'm comfortable doing. So the main riff took a while to develop because I don't usually write them in that kind of style or key really. But when it did, I was very, very pleased with how it turned out. And that was the basis for it, that starting riff, the thrashy one. And basically, I tried to write it in a bit more of a minor style, which I don't usually do, especially when I solo. And a bit heavier, a bit more screams, just kind of like, it was honestly a little bit Children of Bodom styled, even though I don't know that it really ended up sounding too much like them. But there are definitely parts, especially in the verses, where I felt inspired by them, and they're a group I really love. Something that I noticed that I really tried to do, I didn't notice that I tried to do it, I just said that weird. But during the interlude, the part where it sounds a little bit Egyptian, I was really trying to focus on the rhythms, and this is actually something I really tried to focus on throughout this album. I didn't do it as much in the first one, is to make sure that the rhythms popped and really added something to it, give it a lot of movement, give it a lot of, dynamism, just kind of like, move it back and forth. I really think that worked out here. It's with the heavy breakdown and with the solo. I really love how the solo goes. I think it's really, really heavy, minor, and also like really, I don't know, it moves around a lot, and I really like that. Love how it ended up turning out. In the chorus, originally it was just the one lead, but then when I finished recording it, I found that it didn't have the sound I wanted, so I harmonized it, and I initially was against it. I don't know why, I just was. But eventually I gave in. I did it, liked the way it sounded. I really, really like the tiny little leads that are like sprinkled throughout the verses. Those are some of my favorite. And this track, like Collision Course, like Dark Eyes, Dark Intent, and Ashes of Avarice, Heart First Overboard, and this one, they're all pretty much entirely new. Dark Intent has like a little bit, as in terms of like the one riff, but this one and all those tracks are basically new tracks that I haven't really used any old stuff for. The rest of them are tracks that I wrote a while back and that I've changed up, rearranged, added new stuff like that too. But this one in particular was 100% completely new, nothing reused at all. And one of the things that's interesting about this one is that this one is probably our only song so far, I think, that is fictional. So it's not about anything. It's just about anything real, that is. It's about Final Fantasy VII, which is a series that I love. And the nickname for Genova, one of the main villains in it, is the Calamity from the Sky. So I wrote it from the point of view of Genova coming down and, fucking shit up. And I like that. Not everything needs to be serious. This can just be fun and about a series that I love. And that's what it's about. There's no great backstory to it. That's just what it is. And that's the Calamity from the Sky. Hope you like it. So, continuing on with our series of examining each of the songs on our second album, Collision Course, by Fate and Crisis. We're going to talk about the song Heart First Overboard. This one doesn't have all that much interesting in terms of background or anything like that. I don't know if the stories on these ones aren't as good as the first ones, because those songs had percolated for a long time, with me. So there was more stories to talk about with those ones. With these ones, it's just new stuff I've written. So it's not as some of them aren't as juicy. The older ones I find, A Red Dawn, The Light That Hides From Your Eyes, World of Nothing, Plectrums. Those ones have a little bit more stories behind them because they've had a bit more time. But since these ones are brand new and I wrote them by myself, it's a little bit tougher to have grand stories about about all the stuff. Anyway, so a little bit about the background for this one, though. I remember writing this one in Saskatchewan in my mother-in-law's house, on the couch in front of the TV. I remember that. The main riff is actually a older riff from a song called Tears to Drown, which I couldn't get the riff to pop. it was getting muddled and swallowed up by the rhythms in that track. I tried to record that one before, but I couldn't get it to sound the way I wanted to. Also, the tempos were all fucked up, and at the time, I still hadn't quite gotten the grasp in Cubase for how to properly do tempos and make them flow right. Change the tempos, that is, which I can now, and I have done a bunch on this album, so that's pretty cool, and maybe I'll come back to that one at some point. But for Heart First, in this one, I had, in fact, I've taken the riff from Tears to Drown, moved it up to a higher strings, and then shifted the key to be in this key, because it needed something, and I felt like I couldn't use the riff in that other song, and so this made it able to punch through a bit better. It's the second riff, not the first one, and that's the riff that's taken, but the rest of it is brand new. I came up first with the rhythms in the intro, which are the rhythms in the chorus. And I really, really love the really, really half-held, you don't quite hit the note on the unison bend in the intro and the choruses. I love doing that. I love unison bends. They're some of my favorite stuff. Unison bend and pinches are probably my favorite things to play on guitar. Absolutely love doing it. Bends too, I guess, but there's a lot of techniques on guitar. I found this song a lot harder to sing because A, it's in a key I'm not as strong at, but also it's there's less going on, especially in the verses. I've avoided doing like basically drum and bass stuff, which is stuff I used to do a lot when I was just starting out, and I was really into like Blink-182 and Sum 41. They kind of do that a lot. Green Day too. I wasn't as much into Green Day, but they do that a lot. So in the pop punk scene and all that stuff, but I've avoided doing it because I always felt like I wasn't strong enough to like carry a song with just drums and bass. But this time I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a shot. I think it worked out pretty well. Yeah, it's just a little bit daunting to just kind of leave yourself out there. I usually like to support my voice with a lot of leads and pick chunky rhythms, but didn't do it in this one, and I think it worked out pretty good. I do really love the solo, just because it's tapping, but it's tapping with 2 notes instead of 3. So it's kind of like not really trilling, but it's that diddly effect with that. It makes it sound really cool, especially with the wah. So I really, really like that. I thought that was pretty cool. And my favorite part is actually the ending. I don't know, it goes kind of like hard rockish instead of like metal, which I really like it. I always really like a good strong ending to a song. I think strong endings are underrated. Yeah, so that's it. And also with the song Tears to Drown, I do feel like, I'm just throwing it out here now so I don't get called on it later, 'cause I usually hate it when bands redo riffs, but I actually still love that song Tears to Drown. I feel like if I can make it work, I will end up reusing that riff back in its original form maybe on the 3rd album or the 4th album, I don't know, but I probably will end up doing that because I do really love that song, and it makes me sad that I can't do it right now. So if I find a way to do it, I will reuse that riff. I usually hate it when bands do that, but I would do it in this case because I really do like it. Anyway, yeah, that's Heart First Overboard. And lyrically, the song is about making sure that you're open to taking a chance, even if there's a risk of failure or pain or loss or something like that. It's still important to, jump in with your heart sometimes. You can't always, just think with your head. Even though I do like thinking with my head, I am inherently a rational, calculating person, so I don't usually like just taking a risk. But I think you have to accept sometimes that there's always some level of risk that you have to assume, and that it's worth it to take a chance. So that's what the song's about, and yeah, for one that didn't have much of a backstory, this took the longest time. So anyway, that's what it's about, and that's Heart First Overboard. So moving on, the next one in our series of examinations that we're going to go through is Ashes of Avarice, which is the second to last track on Collision Course, which is my band, Fate and Crisis's second album. Ooh, that was a mouthful to say. Yeah, so and previously in the last one for Heart First Overboard, I mentioned that the stories for the songs weren't as good. And I don't mean that the songs aren't as good. I think this album is some of the best work we've ever done. I actually always go into the mindset of it that any song I'm working on, I always work on it to try and make it be the best song it can possibly be and act like it's the best song I've ever done, even if by the end maybe I'm like, okay, it's not the best song, that I've ever done. But genuinely think there's a lot of songs on this album, on the second album, that are excellent, just as good as anything, or if not better than anything on the first album. So love the first album, love the second album, think it holds up. It's super strong against it. I was just talking about the stories behind it, because when songs are really old and you're able to play them a lot and then change them around, maybe turn it into a different song, and it turns into another song later or whatever, you can get some funny stories around it and all that stuff. I suppose this one, where outside of the songs that I had taken from my catalog from before that I had written, anything that was written new solely for this album that I haven't played live, that is anything like that, it's just a little bit harder to have like great stories behind them, or funny stories, stuff like that. So still great songs, at least in my opinion, if it's not too arrogant to say so. I like my own stuff, sue me. I wouldn't make it if I didn't like it. So I think I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't talking about the quality of the songs at all. I think both albums, I always strive to make each album as good as the previous one, at least, if not better. So that was not my intent at all. But in this case, for Ashes of Avarice, this one actually has a decent amount of stuff behind it. So this was actually during the recording, not before, but during the recording, I made it into multiple songs. There was one called Arterial Severance, which was the working title. There was another one called Blackened Memories, which was the original title. And I remember I used, it was both, yeah. Arterial Severance had the verse riff in it, but in a different key. And Blackened Memories used the first riff from it, in the same key, but just in a different song. And both those songs I had recorded almost in their entirety, and I believe actually both of them I put previews up for. But again, by the time they were done, I didn't think they were good enough. I didn't think they stood up against the first album, and I didn't think they were good enough to be on this album. So I scrapped them, but I took the parts that I had written that I liked, which were those riffs, and I built this new song, Ashes of Avarice, which I really love. It's one of my absolute favorites. And the reason I love it is because, again, on this album I was trying to push the boundaries a little bit. And the last one I kept really to that pop punk / rock / metal, kind of sound that I'd cultivated. And I really love that sound. And obviously, it's going to be an integral part of my sound moving forward. But I wanted to push the boundaries on a couple of songs, like Collision Course and Calamity from the Sky, and a couple more atmospheric ones. Just go in some different directions, try and, push the boundaries of what I feel I'm comfortable doing. Get outside my comfort zone a little bit. So for this one, I wanted to write one that was really long. It kind of took you on a journey, the way a lot of bands I really love do. Maiden does that amazing, better than any other band, I think. Obviously, I'm not comparing myself with them, but I just wanted to try something, similar to what a great band like them have done. So that's what I tried to do with this one. That's why it kind of goes like fat, and there's a slow section in the middle, and it's fast again. It takes you all around. Just want to be a bit more progressive on this one and just try and see where I could take it. So the part that slows down, those chords, those are actually old chords. That's the only part of this song that is old. And those were from a song called Plague of the Firstborn. Back when we were doing instrumentals, me and this other drummer. And then eventually at one point we did get a bassist who was one of my old friends who's passed away. And he had wrote this really cool bass line for it. So when I was initially writing this part, I remembered how the bass line went, and I tapped it out, and I wanted to put it in. But as the song, progressed and changed, I didn't feel that it would fit anymore, which sucked, because on our first album, the song City of Lies, we wrote that together, or at least he wrote parts of it, and I wrote the majority of it. For those ones, it was, City of Lies was more of a collaboration between three of us. A lot of different stuff going on. But I always liked to keep, I wanted to keep, part of him as, part of my friendship in, each album. So I was kind of bummed that I wasn't able to do it. But instead, I wrote a bass line that was inspired by that one. And that was kind of my way of making sure there was something of him in there. Because that's always something I want to do. Just my little way of giving like a little living tribute or something. Let's see. What else about this one? Oh, this is something I tried to do. There's actually 2 moments like this in this album. There's one in The Light That Hangs From Your Eyes, and there's one in this one that is actually a straight-up little bass solo. Nothing amazing or anything, but typically when I record, I do all the instruments. So I do the drums, I do the guitars, I do the vocals, bass. So usually by the time bass comes around, I'm tired. I don't really want to put a ton of effort into it because I put most of my effort into the guitars and then into the vocals, to be honest, just because it takes the most effort. Because I find it's always a struggle for me. So I end up usually just being lazy and laying down root notes for the bass. Bass easily gets the least of my attention. Probably drums and guitar get the most, and then vocals than that. But in this one, I thought on this album I would try a little bit harder and try and try and punch it up a little bit. So I added that in there and took one of my friends who's a bass player by surprise. When he heard it, he was like, "Did you put a bass solo in there?" And I was like, "Yep." And he's like, "Oh, I'm surprised." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm usually way too lazy to do it on the bass, but I did." So I thought it was kind of a fun thing to throw in. Yeah. It was originally called Eclipse. That's what I wanted to call it, and I changed my mind. Ended up calling it Ashes of Avarice because it fit way better with the theme of the song, which is again very similar to Collision Course. Very similar theme about taking things too far and getting somewhere we really don't want to go. And it's also a nod to my previous band Avarice, which I love that word, since this new band is kind of the new formation of that band. So that's kind of my little nod to that, since this is like the phoenix from the ashes of Avarice. That is Fate and Crisis. So that was just much longer than I wanted it to be, but that's a little bit about Ashes of Avarice, one of my absolute favorite tracks. Love the way it turned out. And yeah, that's it. And we'll be moving on. Hope you like it. Enjoy. So moving on real quick, we're just going to do the last track called Plectrums for Her. There's not much to say about this one. It's an old track that I recorded in undergrad at York. Sorry, I didn't record. I wrote it then. It's about my girlfriend, who is now my fiance. And it's just kind of a love song. And I really didn't like recording this one because it hurt my ears because I couldn't get the acoustic to be quiet. It was coming through the headphones, and it was just kind of a pain. But it ended up turning out really nice. My favorite part is easily the part post-chorus, where it sounds really desperate and really frantic, and in my head, I call it the Spanish riff. I don't know if it actually sounds Spanish, but to me it does. So yeah, that's how it turned out, and I really liked it. I liked it that it's our first acoustic song with no drums, so that was really interesting. There was a part of me that thought about putting drums on it and making it with distorted guitars and all the stuff, but when I ended up trying it, it did not sound the way I thought it would, so I ended up scrapping it, and it is what it is. I like the way it turned out. Really like that one riff. And one of my friends was actually going to do like cymbal crescendos for us, which is what we used to do when we used to play it. Which is weird though, because I never actually sung it, so that's kind of strange. I can't remember why we were playing it, but we were. But I ended up forgetting about it because the pandemic has gone on so long that I haven't been able to meet up with him and get him to do it. And eventually I forgot about it, and I just put it on. So bums me out a little bit that I didn't end up being able to do it, but it is what it is, and I still love the track the way it sounds. So that's the series of behind-the-scenes videos. I can't tell if I'm going to put these all together in one video or do them separately. It all really depends on how it sounds. But really hope you enjoyed this. Just a little bit of how the tracks were made, where the riffs came from, songs they had come from, little stories behind them. Some of the older tracks have some more stories. And just what I think about them, and kind of what they mean and what they were inspired by. really, really pleased with the new album and how it turned out. It was a struggle to get it done. It felt like it took forever, but hopefully the next one will be quicker. We really love the way this one turned out. I think it stacks up super well against the first album. Keeps the same quality that I'm looking for, and I think it took us to the next level in terms of the boundaries we wanted to push for the band. You know, being more extreme, being heavier, being lighter, having a bit more atmosphere in some songs, going acoustic in others. I think it took us all in a lot of different directions, and really pleased with how it turned out. I'm very proud of it. I think it's just as good, if not better, than the first album, and hopefully the third and the fourth will be even better as well. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for listening to the album, the first and the second. We really hope you enjoy it, and yeah, we're really happy with it. We hope you guys like it too. And here's the little Easter egg as well. The song, there was a preview I'd put up called Towards Another Day that was supposed to be included on this album, but by the time that it came time to record it, I realized that I couldn't sing in that key. I just couldn't do it any justice, so that's why it's not included on the album. So I really love that song. It's a lighter one, but you know, in the event that I'm able to do it sometime in the future, I will include it on there. But yeah, we really love this new album. We think it's our best work, and we hope that you guys love it too. So if you like it, tell your friends, share it around, and yeah, enjoy it. Thanks so much, guys, and hope you enjoyed this series of videos. Thanks.